From the ticket to your next meal, to your ticket to the next holiday, it's an easy way to ask for a boost when you're low. And keeping track of everything on the go. The future of money is simple, and it's here. Download the new M-Pesa app today.
Right, you're not wrong. It is not your calendar or your mind that is cheating you. It is not Monday, it is Tuesday. And of course, this is a special edition of The Bottom Line KE, which usually comes to you every Monday from 9 p.m. right here on Lookup TV with me, Eugene Anangwe. Now, tonight is a special edition. We've been talking to you about this. You have seen it across our social media platforms. We have a special guest, and that is the ANC party leader and presidential candidate, that is Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. And he's here on set with us to try and share his agenda with you as a Kenyan voter. And of course, we'll be highlighting a few issues here and there from the top 10 issues that affect the country, trying to understand his point of view on those issues. But remember, this program is also meant for you. You can be part of the conversation. My work here is just to facilitate the conversation between you and our guests. All you need to do is send us your tweets. If you're tweeting us, the hashtag to use, as always, is the bottom line KE. You can remember to either tag myself at Eugene Anangwe or at Lookup TV, or you can just simply add that particular hashtag and we'll be able to track and read your feedback in the course of the program. Remember, you're transmitting live across our digital platforms. That is on Facebook Live. You can also leave a comment right there. We'll be able to read those comments or questions that you have for Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. We're also live streaming on YouTube. You can also feel free to leave a comment or a question right there. Over to our guest in studio. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Mudavadi, for making it on the show. It must be those moments for all those who are aspiring for the top seat. This is a time where you're, it's nerve-wracking, moving around the country and all that. Must have been a busy, busy day for you, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. But first of all, Eugene, it's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed our last conversation.
Thank you.
When you're holding a different hat.
Right.
But here I am, and I'm happy to be part of your show tonight.
It can only get better.
Yeah, let's make it work.
Asante sana. Okay. So, Mheshimiwa, I'll start off first of all by understanding one thing, because the country today, as we speak, we are held by the grip of the restrictions that have been put in place by the government of the day when it comes to containing COVID-19. One of those restrictions, or the announcement that was made as far as the directives are concerned, was the restrictions of gatherings in terms of the political gatherings in whichever nature. We've also seen the curfews, which have also been announced. But Mheshimiwa, if you look at what we are seeing today with the rallies that are going on, or those political gatherings that are going on, you are among those who have been nicknamed as the super spreaders because of the rallies that you conduct. I'd love to hear from you, first of all. Today, that rally that we see these politicians holding could have been a concert of a young musician who's seeking a livelihood out of an event that brings together the numbers we see in the rallies that you and the other politicians hold, but they cannot do that. Do you feel that it is time to just fully reopen the country and say, you know what, the economy has suffered, Kenyans have suffered, it is time, if we are able to hold these rallies, why can't a musician, an artist, an event organizer also be able to do such a thing without any restrictions?
Well, Eugene, it's a very difficult time for all Kenyans, let me be honest. And some of us are extremely worried that as the election fever picks up, it could indeed multiply the COVID dilemma once again. So it is a real problem. I'm not saying that I have an outright solution to this, because people are getting restless. They want to hear their leaders, or potential leaders for that matter. And at the same time, the leaders feel that they must connect with the people. So there's this pressure. So what you have seen is that politicians are not making rallies per se. They're having what you'd call town halls. And then they say that they were engaging in a meet the people tour, basically, so that they're mobile and they stop at strategic points and talk to people. And that indeed bears its risks, that there's a possibility the gains that we may have made by observing the COVID restrictions could be undermined by this process. Now, the other dilemma is that not all Kenyans have been vaccinated. And if we look at our numbers, they're still very modest in relation to the population that we have. Maybe just slightly over 3 million people may have been vaccinated. But we have seen that that vaccination should not be taken as something that now completely renders you free of
moving around,
of any risk, because maybe you know some, but I definitely know some people who have received or had received the 2 doses of vaccination, but when COVID struck them, they lost their lives in spite of the vaccination. So the risk is not gone. But we have constitutional deadlines to meet. There are arguments that elections were held in other countries, even within the context of the COVID framework. So Kenyans may not be exactly free from this, but I think we still have to observe as much as possible the guidelines of the Ministry of Health.
Right. Yeah, but I may ask this question. You must have received both doses by now.
Yes, I did.
And you have mentioned how the risk is very high for those who have even received the jab and still got exposed, and some have even lost their lives. Hearing this from you, and you say that there are constitutional deadlines to be met and obligations to be met as far as political processes are concerned. Someone listening to you might say that we don't care. You know, as political class, we must meet this. We don't care. And amongst those people who join your rallies, some of them might be among those who have not even received a jab. Aren't you putting them in danger?
There's a danger. I'm not saying that we don't care. We care. In fact, I'll mention a friend of mine, a party member. He called me from Nyandarua, and he told me that his 6-year-old child has just recovered from the COVID attack. So clearly, the exposure is real, even within the schools and even within these public gatherings. So if there's any investment that has got to be made, it must be an investment by the government to accelerate the vaccination process in critical areas, not just those who might be engaging in political circles, but the teachers, the frontline operatives, the policemen and so forth. All these people will also need that. And we have seen that in other places, as much as children have not been hit very hard, but the fact that this parent can tell me that the child has just recovered from COVID is an indicator that this issue needs to be taken a notch higher. As they vaccinate those that are likely to be more vulnerable, I think we must also start putting in place the plans for the younger people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Musalia Mudavadi, I think the question that I would also probably, or how I would also ask this question would be, what if you, the political class, thought of an idea of saying, beyond these rallies, if you came to this rally, by joining the government in the rally to offer vaccinations or to provide vaccinations for the people, what if you also put these rallies to become vaccination points, so that you, as many as people come to your grounds, there are health workers who are coming also to offer vaccinations? I mean, probably this would be seen as a win-win situation.
Well, that would not be a good environment to conduct vaccination. Remember, you're handling human beings, the staff that are there. Can you imagine the logistics that would go with security and shifting medical personnel to such centers? It can be very difficult. I don't think political rallies or political gatherings would be the best venue for vaccinations. Let us make sure it is happening in an environment, because supposing that there's somebody who reacts negatively towards the vaccination, because we all have different conditions, how will that person be handled? So we must make sure that vaccination takes place in an orderly environment. And in all fairness, political gatherings are rarely orderly.
They're rarely orderly, not the right environment to do the vaccines, but the right environment to contract COVID.
That's the side, the negative side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we do about that? Because me, I'm concerned about that.
I wish.
As a Kenyan.
You see, the problem here is that, as I said, the anxiety, the fever of the election process is really with us now, and to get people to enforce certain things. Perhaps the government failed somewhere along the line, because had they maybe come hard on people a little bit initially, if it was strictly enforcing that there shall be no more political gatherings the way they did initially, perhaps we'd be talking differently. But let us admit it, we have seen some laxity.
Loopholes.
And this is what the politicians are exploiting.
Including yourself.
I can't hide. I can't hide. Politicians are exploiting that window.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's move the conversation forward, because we'll come back to the COVID measures, but looking at the recovery process for the economy, which seems to be having been hit. The curfews. Let's fast forward. Let's say it's past 2022, you've been elected president, we are faced by this pandemic. Would you have handled this pandemic in this way that the President Uhuru Kenyatta's government has done it, especially with curfews? There are those who are arguing the disease does not discriminate whether it will get onto your system at night or during the day. Do you think these curfews are relevant today as we speak?
You see, the whole issue is that you're mitigating the risk. Okay, you're mitigating the risk in the sense that what would be the chances of one contracting the COVID virus? Now, the government, and maybe I would not have done it any differently, because the vaccine was not yet in place, and initially there was conflict on how the virus was being transmitted and so forth. And as people became more aware, then they were able to start dealing with these measures in a different way. But no doubt, the curfews have hurt across the board. There's no sector that can say they have survived free of this curfew problem. All of them have. Even the medical profession itself has suffered the consequences of this virus. So to me, let me say that the issue was to mitigate the risks. And it has now become clear that apart from observing the cleanliness, social distancing, and so forth. The ultimate weapon here is, can we get as many Kenyans as possible vaccinated? The countries that seem to be opening up now are those that have achieved well over 50% of vaccination of their populations. And that is why they are loosening up, particularly in the developed countries in Europe or US and so forth. But in reality, surprisingly, you ask yourself, the continent of Africa has been lucky, because the vaccination levels have generally been very low. But COVID is here. And sometimes you may argue that maybe people think it's not real, but perhaps the statistics have not been fully captured effectively, because you have to wait for those who have been to hospital, diagnosed, and then it becomes clear that that person suffered from COVID. But it has been strange lately that you can go to a village or a constituency and there are about 10 deaths within a space of 1 week. And if you follow carefully, invariably, you may find that these people interacted at one place or the other.
And you could have been at the rally.
And they could have been at the rally,
right,
or they could have been at a homestead together, perhaps even in a church together, or at a funeral together.
I think the point here is that some Kenyans are feeling that they are unfairly being treated when it comes to these restrictions, when in most cases they are the least contributors to the spread. They feel the politicians have everything that they need, while when these curfews are done, it is them who have to close shop. If they was roasting some maize in the evening, it is them who have to now shut down, while the politicians resort to their comfort zones when they go back to their homes. I'm trying to hear from you, what would be the best way to deal with this situation? Speaking from the point of the economist that you are,
I think,
is it the right time to just reopen the country? Do away with curfews?
Well, first of all, let's make it parallel with the vaccination. Let us accelerate the vaccination. We can perhaps cut back on certain expenditures and make sure that vaccines become more accessible, and we deploy our trained medical staff to quickly process this. This is the quickest way. But Eugene, the reality is that the numbers of COVID cases seem to have been declining. And that perhaps is setting the foundation or the environment when all these restrictions can be completely lifted. But we must remember, resurge can be very bad. And the only way in the long term to mitigate against curfews or closures of the economy or sectors of the economy is to make sure that we have more vaccination.
Right. I'll move to another question, and the question is on the position that you are vying for. You would love to be the chief executive officer for this country. And someone sitting back would be asking themselves, why? Why does he want to be president? For what reason does he want to take that particular position? He could be a member of parliament. He can just decide to relax from his home because he's okay. You know, that is the perception that everybody has about you. Why do you want to be president? What is the reason?
Because I believe I want to make a significant contribution to this country.
You have.
And let me tell you, we must never subdue ambition. Okay? But ambition must also be for a good cause. I seek to be able to be president of this country so that I can work with Kenyans to work on the challenges that we are facing in a more aggressive manner, if I may put it that way. And these are many, all of them revolving around a weakened economy. And And these are issues we must tackle: the cost of living, the number of people who have lost jobs, the punitive tax levels that we're beginning to see, the heavy debt reflected in those punitive taxes that we are experiencing are issues that we need to deal with, amongst others.
Right.
So I am offering myself, and it is during times like this that Kenyans should put their best foot forward. So I would like to encourage Kenyans to look at it in the context of people who want to make a change, a difference in this country. And I'm offering myself, saying that I'm ready to serve the people of Kenya. That is why I have declared my intention.
Right. But there are those who argue and say, these days there are those who say, you know what, don't tell us what you intend to do for us. Show us what you've been able to do for us before, so that we can be able to have faith that you would be able to do it. Musalia Mudavadi, there are those who would argue and say, you have sat in different governments before in your political history. You have held various portfolios, very powerful ones for that matter. You've been a vice president, you've been a deputy prime minister, you've held very heavy portfolios. And they would say, even being member of parliament, where some of the laws pinching Kenyans today were actually decided in that particular house. And they would be saying, why now? Why now? Why, and must it be if you're president? Why couldn't you do something during those particular periods and it could be somewhere different?
Well, I can say that every season has its challenges, all right? I entered politics when I was very young, 29. That is when I became a member of parliament for Sabatia.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, if you went to the constituency, bearing in mind that we didn't even have the CDF kitty that is used today, I was able to pioneer at that time what we called the Sabatia Constituency Development Fund, through resource mobilization, through fundraising. And I set up a fund which perhaps became a precursor to what is today seen as a CDF. But there are projects that I left in the constituency, all right? Facilitated opening of an eye hospital, which today has become a teaching center for students of the university who want to do ophthalmology, and so many other things. Now, but perhaps what Kenyans may not know, because we are dealing with quite a span of time, is that the liberal market economy they enjoy today was largely put in place by my tenure, or through my tenure at the Treasury. I opened up this economy. I unified the exchange rate, so that we would not have parallel exchange rates and you'd have one exchange rate. I stemmed a financial crisis in this country, where banks and various government policies like export compensation were ruining the economy and inflation was high. I was able to deal with this. Believe you me, I'm the one who put in place the bill that established the Kenya Revenue Authority in this country. I am also the one who put through Parliament the bill that made sure that a governor of central bank does not serve more than 2 terms. And we even put in place the kind of ceilings that would be required if they were to borrow from the public, some of which have been seriously flouted. Okay? So there are so many measures. I removed price controls in this country. Now, if you're talking of a market economy, we could not have thrived to where we are if we remained in a controlled regime.
Right.
Okay. Of course, it has to go with the responsibility. All right. Because at the end of the day, inflation and other factors, people may try to blame the private sector at the end of the day. But I can tell you the biggest culprit is usually what policies is the government of the day pursuing.
Right, which we'll talk about in just a while. I want to go back to
So I've opened up. I'm the one who put in the legislation for devolution. And so many other things. So this backdrop of experience, including rescheduling of public debt when I was in Treasury, because we were in a similar situation as we are today. Of course, the debt levels may have been different, but the debt levels today are very high, and they need a clear mind and concerted effort, you collectively with other experts, to be able to deal with.
Yeah. Sadly, you are speaking to a new generation.
Absolutely.
Today, a youthful generation, which the IBC says they're targeting up to about 9 million new voters who will be voting in the next election. Most of these people might not want to hear the history, sadly. You know, they don't want to hear that.
But I was responding to the question.
To the question, of course.
Because you had said, what had you done?
Exactly. So on the flip side,
yes.
There are those who ask that question, and there are those who say, we do not care about the history we are caring about right now. What has he done for us? In fact, some of the young people listening to you tonight, and they hear that you are part of those who set up the KRA, which in their mind they feel has really push them to the corner, especially when it comes to the taxation and all those kind of things. They might be coming back to say, but what is he promising to do for us right now? What agenda does he have for us? I'm talking about now the youth. Could you be able to speak to them?
I think we need by and large, we need to tell the youth the truth. Okay, it's important because to find a solution to anything, truth is critical. And I'm one of those politicians who finds it extremely difficult to peddle fictitious solutions to the youth in this country. It's very dangerous. So what do we really need to do? When I say we want a working economy, na pesa mfukoni, or uchumi bora, na pesa mfukoni, ANC, and then the next clarion call is uchumi bora, and then pesa mfukoni. The only way I'm trying to simplify this, is that to gauge whether the economy is doing better is whether we can retain in our pocket a good disposable income after taxation. All right. This is absolutely important. Now, I bring out these things because we want to help the young people. And to help the young people, we must have a robust economy. An economy that will work for the big industrialist, but also work for the small upstart. All right? Now, there are about 20 million small to medium-sized enterprises in this country. These entities require credit, require finance for them to move forward. But let me tell you, if we cheat ourselves that the government will, through the youth fund or through the women fund, be able to fund all these entities, we are deceiving ourselves. Because the government can only feed the youth fund or the women fund through taxation, not through any other body. All right?
Right.
So how much can you tax at the end of the day? So we want a working economy so that the financial sector can grow. And through the financial sector, our young men and women, our people with disability, can access credit at a low interest rate without having to wait for the youth fund. Because if things become difficult, the youth fund will be competing whether you fund the youth fund or do you pay salaries for the teachers.
Right.
Do you create the women fund and put in money as a kitty, or do you fund the hospitals?
But
you see the point?
I get the point.
So we must have an economy
Yeah.
where the private sector can now thrive. All right? And through that, there'll now be enough resources to be able to support the young men and women.
Right. The beauty for the Kenyan of today, ahead of 2022, is that the politicians who are vying for office all seem to be somehow speaking to a major issue, and that is the economy. You know, and whether each of you is giving the right solution or not, but at least you're speaking to the economy. Now let's talk a bit about the how aspect that makes your agenda unique from the agenda of the other competitors. Honorable Raila Odinga says 6,000 per month for the unemployed youth. William Ruto talks about the hustler narrative, where those who are uko mashinani kule chini, they'll be supported, and we now forget about wale wadosi, this is in his language, and we focus on those ones who are down there. Kalonzo Musyoka talks about 24-hour economy. And all of you are talking about the economy and supporting the common citizen. But how can you tell a layman listening to you tonight that your agenda for the economy and for the mwananchi is the best?
First of all, sometimes let me blow my own trumpet.
Yeah.
I have been in situations around the economy, perhaps more than the other people that are talking about it. Secondly, I am the one who has been raising the red flag on critical areas more than these other people.
So they've copied you?
Oh yes, I started talking about some of these issues much earlier, and even when there was the debate around the BBI,
yeah.
If you go back to the clips, you will find that I'm the one who said that we are not going to go far until we are able to tackle the issues around the economy, the cost of living, and creation of jobs.
Right.
And you remember I said that Kenya is the only country around here that you would call a public rally in the middle of a working day.
Yeah. And it will be full.
And it will be full.
Yeah.
That does not, don't be deceived that that is popularity. Those are young men and women who don't have a meaningful job. So they end up coming there to listen because they don't have other things to do. You try that in other countries where people are on duty, you'll not get that kind of crowd. But I want to add to the issue that dealing with this matter is not an academic exercise. All right? We are not in, Kenya is not a lecture room where we want to start dwelling on models. Let us be realistic, because you're asking how.
How? That's the key question to me.
Now, I want to tell Kenyans that government does not have money of its own. A government of the day gets its money through taxation. All right? So when we have elaborate or statements that are not well thought out, you must ask yourself, what will be the level of taxation?
Right.
All right? Now, our population is about 48 million. We know very well that 60% of that population is youthful. And we know that there's a very high unemployment rate. So if you are going to work on the basis of 6,000 every month, have you worked out the numbers? You know? These are the questions. That's why I say I don't want to peddle issues that will not be realistic. So so how do we want to go about it?
Correct.
Let us diagnose the issues. For instance, do you agree that we have a high public debt or not? I don't know what you think, Eugene.
Yeah, we do.
We do. So let us find ways of mitigating on that debt.
How?
One, let us now make sure that any further borrowing is concessionary borrowing. where you are borrowing at 1%, repayable over 30 years. That's an example. And there's money like that out there. Move away from expensive debt where you're paying 7% and repayable in 15 years.
But there must be a reason why we got here, where we are.
It's because commitments were made. That's why I'm saying, let us be sure that, how do we do it? Let us cut our cloth to fit our size. Because if we don't, the tax implications are heavy. All right? So if for instance, I'm saying I want to be president, and I'm promising every homestead a red carpet, how am I going to fund that red carpet? So the point I'm trying to say is this. Let us be realistic in our public financial engagements. Our priorities must be set right.
Right.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that we should not reduce this discussion to an academic discussion.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Now, the common wananchi listening right now would feel that what you're saying is what is more academic than what a politician says, nitakuwekea 6,000 kwa mfuko. Ukinichagua nitakuwekea 6,000.
My friend.
This person was already committed and saying this is what I want. But for you, you're saying...
My friend,
yes.
This is what I'm saying. Yes. Remember I started by saying Kenyans deserve the truth.
Right.
And the truth shall set you free. All right?
Yeah.
Let us not give false impression. You remember the famous, we shall have laptops, we shall have this, we shall have so many stadia, and so forth. Endless commitments within a very short time frame.
Yeah.
Pronouncements by the mouth, by politicians.
Yeah.
But they never said how. But now, how are we dealing with the how? Why do you think taxes have shot up on fuel? It's because now commitments were made and the government is struggling to deal with them.
The government made those commitments,
yes.
or those who made those commitments.
And the government is formed by politicians.
Right, and they ran for office and they were voted again. So aren't you worried that you could be offering the solution, but probably it is not resonating with what that voter wants to hear?
Well, there's only one thing.
Yeah.
You can either go into politics with a bag full of lies, or you can go to politics with the truth.
Yeah.
I happen to be one of those who wants to go to politics by being realistic and honest to the Kenyans.
Right.
My motto is that promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise. That is how it should be.
All right. I want to ask you this, Mheshimiwa, because majority of people are reading differently.
By the way,
yeah.
Cost of production.
Yeah.
Look at the cost of electricity.
Yeah.
Why do you think we have operators here, industrialists, folding up and migrating to go and set up in Uganda or Rwanda? So
the moment you take over, what do you do for them?
You have to look at those things critically. Yeah, we have to roll back on some issues and find out why this cost is too high.
They could be watching you right now.
They are watching me.
They want to hear your
They are watching me.
What do you do for them?
For instance, there are some. We have to address issues of the cost of production.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So
remember, I've talked about debt.
Yeah.
We must address it.
Yeah.
We must address what is making cost of production high in this country. Okay. There is corruption, no doubt, as a contributor to the cost of production. But also, let us be realistic. If we don't address the cost of power, how on earth are we going to make our industries and companies competitive? We will have a problem.
I'll tell you a practical thing.
And I'm giving you this as critical inputs that go into rolling a country.
A country, yes.
Yeah, and this will feed into agricultural production.
Yeah.
When you hike taxes on fuel, the way it was done, what are you doing to the farmer? What are you doing to his cost of production? Still. And why is the tax high? The tax is high because of overcommitment.
It's overcommitment, but also on the flip side, the legislators, because they also play a role in all this?
Yes, I cannot run away from the fact that Parliament has a very critical role to play because they allocate the resources. And if they don't scrutinize appropriately, yes, then Parliament becomes a contributory to some of these hardships.
Do you also agree we've had the weakest Parliament of our time?
I think so. I would say that it's a Parliament that has played more the role of the executive than ever before.
This including your parliamentarians from your party?
When I talk of Parliament, I do not want to single out any individual. There's some collective responsibility of Parliament here.
Right.
And the reality is that this Parliament has played more in favor of the executive than the oversight role.
There are people who say, Fagia Wote, they all have to go. Everybody needs to go, including people like you who've been there for those decades. You need to go, you need a fresh blood.
I think what is important is that those individual parliamentarians will go and give their own testimonies in their respective constituencies. But the patterns have shown that over the years, after every 5 years, maybe about 70 to 80% of the sitting members of Parliament are usually voted out.
Right.
And by the way, remember we're also dealing with devolution, okay? And when the pressure is high, you have also seen the Council of Governors lamenting that there has been delayed release of resources to the counties. So there's an accumulation of pending bills. People who have genuinely, in many circumstances, supplied goods and services to governments cannot be paid. And they have loans to deal with. They have workers behind them. The next thing you see is that we have these guys facing auction because of pending bills. You know? And these are things we should not... In fact, I was joking and I was telling people that we have reached a situation where even the auctioneers are being auctioned.
Yeah. And it's not
because he's an auctioneer, he's supposed to do his bit, but he's gathered people's property, but he can't even sell it.
Right.
Because there are no takers.
Yeah. And this is the country we're living in today, Mheshimiwa. We cannot wait for 2022 to fix all these issues. If we needed to fix them now, could there be a solution?
Unfortunately, we can only start seeing the turnaround after the election, because the commitments of the government of the day have been made. All right?
So there's no turning back.
And that government is in power.
Yeah.
All right? So even if there is going to be an adjustment, surely you're not expecting it to be an adjustment in the context of the government now. Yeah? These adjustments will have to be made in the context of a new parliament and a new government.
Right. You've mentioned that you promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise.
Absolutely.
I would love to hear your thoughts, first of all, maybe just on the record. Were you a BBI proponent or not?
I had my reservations, and I did express them.
At some point?
Even in Bomas, I cannot run away from that.
Yeah.
I had said that there were some good provisions in the document, because these are Kenyans who had given it some thought.
Yeah.
But I also raised the red flag that there were indeed some aspects of it that were of concern and might make it difficult for Kenyans to move forward.
Yeah.
And I'll give just one example. I gave the example of the ombudsman in relation to the judiciary. And you can go back to the clips. I said this in Bomas, and I said it might make it very difficult because the judiciary will feel that their independence is about to be
taken over.
Yeah. And under the circumstances, you may find challenges.
But you still went ahead to put your signature as a sign of saying, I'm ready to be part of the bandwagon that would work on this. We can fix whatever we can fix, but let's move with this. If you were to draw the line and say...
Do you know the current constitution that we have, Constitution 2010?
Yeah.
Remember, there's never a perfect document.
Yeah.
And if you recall, Kenyans voted in, 67% of Kenyans voted the new constitution. And the argument then was that no constitution is perfect. There are issues that will have to be reviewed going forward. But it's time for Kenyans to move on.
Right. Why I ask you this question is because there is a statement that I would like us to listen to. And when we listen to that particular statement, there's a gentleman who believes that there's something you guys need to do when it comes to the BBI and the whole process, which I'd like us to have a listen, and then we'll come back. Let's take a look at that clip.
Those who pushed BBI on us, we demand an apology from them. We demand an apology from them because they sabotaged the Big Four plan that was supposed to create jobs, millions of jobs for ordinary people, that was supposed to create a universal health coverage framework that would benefit millions of women and children and old people. And let me say this categorically, that there was no way BBI was going to pass because it was the biggest fraud and the most dangerous assignment ever undertaken that would have destroyed the Constitution and imposed on the people of Kenya a president, actually an imperial president.
Right, there you have it. That is Deputy President William Ruto. He demands, or he says, all the proponents of the BBI should actually apologize to Kenyans. The process was the biggest fraud this country has ever had. I wanted to hear your thoughts. Will you apologize? Do you feel that you're part of those who
Listen to
should
me.
apologize?
Listen to him.
Yes.
I made my comments about it. And if you go back, I wish you played the Bombers clips as well.
Yeah.
All right, because this is very subjective. Had you played the Bombers clips, you will notice that I also raised some reservations.
Right.
All right, so don't
But
lump,
he did not sign.
Don't lump something on me. But remember, he's the government. He's part of the government. Even as we speak today. And let's face it, BBI or no BBI, do we have a huge public debt?
We do.
All right. When cabinet was agreeing to these things, was he sitting in cabinet or not sitting there? When commitments were being made about how many stadia and so forth within such a short time frame, was he there or not there? So the cost of living today cannot be zeroed down to the debate around BBI. The cost of living had already hit Kenyans. It was already choking Kenyans on policies that he has been party to.
So the argument would be, in principle, if you do not agree with or you have reservations, you do not be part of the process. This is his argument. Anybody who did not be on this side or
by the way, are you forgetting that he opposed the 2010 Constitution?
Which is, many argue that is protecting.
Which is protecting. So what does that tell you? All right? So as far as I'm concerned, I have no apology to make.
Okay.
Yeah. If he wants to demand an apology, I think he knows who he should demand the apology from. But surely it is not Musalia Mudavadi.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me talk to you a bit, or you could be able to share with us as we move this conversation forward, still on the economy, but now looking at it from a bigger perspective, intra-regional trade, trade with our other countries and all that, and of course tying it with foreign policy, because when you take over office, God willing, let's say in 2022 you've won, how do you intend to position Kenya as a very competitive market? Because we've seen the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement signed in Rwanda, and up to today we do not hear any much of how Kenya is taking. I was there during that historic moment, and everybody was very elated by this. We talk of AGOA, which Rwanda has said, for the dignity of our people, we do not care if the US is going to lock us out, but we are not going to accept second-hand clothes into our country. Kenya seems to be easy and okay with it because we seem to be the biggest market for the second-hand clothes coming out of the United States under AGOA. How would you be positioning Kenya to ensure that, one, we are taking advantage of the markets being created in the region, but also remaining dignified? How do we accept second-hand into our country in the name of just because we need to please country X, Y, Z?
I think, Eugene, you may have missed the point. And that is a very dangerous argument. And I'll tell you why shortly.
Yeah.
First of all, Kenya has got to engage in international trade.
Right.
We have to sign treaties that make sense to the Kenyan people. If they grow our markets and if they enhance our competitiveness, it is important. So all these agreements or treaties that Kenya has signed are critical. It's for us to evaluate and utilize them appropriately. Okay? Kenya has been a beneficiary of the AGOA
Correct.
Arrangement. That is respectable for the export market. But remember, there were quotas, and those quotas have been reducing systematically. That is why you will find that to some extent, a number of companies that used to export started closing down. But I want to tell you this. The economic situation of our Kenyan people is such that we would be doing them a great disservice if we try to lock all the windows or doors that enable them to do business.
Regardless of counterfeit, fake,
what we need to do is to be able to manage it carefully. You know, I'll give you the story of the Kikomba and the traders and why it hurt. Because these were small business people who would pull together in the Harambee spirit, bring in a less than container load consignment, share it out, and do some trading. It's a livelihood. So if you just wake up one day and assume that everybody's income is at par
to buy first class
goods, then what Kenya are you living in? We must allow a process where the incomes grow systematically, but we cannot deny those with the lower income levels to run away. And ironically, when some of these measures were being put in place, so you push out, Eugene, you push out another Mudavadi, you push out another Musalia or Kamau or Mwangi or Nyango, who has been doing this business. And then you now say that it can only be somebody who can afford a huge container. Now, some of the people now bringing in these huge container loads, at the end of the day, are not necessarily even Kenyans anymore. They are foreigners who are doing business here. Because they have access to credit in different ways that the Kenyan person didn't have access to. So there must be a balance. All right? There must be a balance. And it is this balance that we must strike by discussing and having public participation. And then we're able to move forward.
Right.
Now, at the end of the day, I come back to what I told you earlier. We must address issues around the cost of production.
And I'd asked you a question to say, what exactly would you do immediately? What is on top of your mind? That when you wake up any time of the day or the night, you just say, cost of production, reducing it is this.
Remember, please, economic solutions are not instant coffee.
Yes.
Okay? We must, and the truth that I'm talking about is that there must be a gestation period. There'll be some pain before we come back to what would be a thriving moment. All right? So we need we need to be realistic. And that's why I was saying, let us not peddle unrealistic solutions to the Kenyan people, right? And let us be alive to the fact that the cost of living is hurting. Let me tell you, you would want to buy your wife or your son or your daughter, not secondhand. You'd want to buy them something that is basically new and all that. So we must learn that Kenyans are surviving on some of the second-hand items, not because it's their wish, but because the economic realities, which are not very friendly, have pushed them to certain situations.
So meaning from a regional perspective, if the region through the East Africa Legislative Assembly is deciding to have a single voice on a certain decision as far as the region is concerned, you would be that leader who would say, no, you guys go that direction, but for us, this is what we are taking.
Everything in treaties is usually negotiated. And trade calls for people who can negotiate and understand the dynamics
of each
appropriately, so that we create a win-win situation for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, I would invest a lot in making sure that the technical people who are involved in negotiations of trade arrangements or treaties and what have you are people who can give a very, very thorough and serious take on the issues that are on the table.
Right, fair enough. I want us to come back a bit on the politics, and then we'll finish off with the dynamics that we're seeing in the political shaping up of the 2022 vote. Mheshimiwa, there are those who say, Sasa, you guys are just going for panel interviews for the candidates who will be chosen by a select few. I think by now you already know I'm talking about the luncheon and the meetings with the Mount Kenya Foundation. We've seen your competitors say that we are meeting the Kenyan Foundation. Kenyan Foundation are the people at these rallies, while you and others from the OCA formation have been able to meet the Mount Kenya Foundation. Maybe you could clarify to us what is the aim of this meeting?
You know, these are stakeholder engagements.
Yeah.
You know, and Kenyans need to understand stakeholder engagements take place all over. Mm-hmm. For instance, are you going to formulate industrial policy without talking to the Kenya Association of Manufacturers? Let us just be realistic. You will need to understand what is hurting or where are the obstacles. Talk to the Kenya Industrial Association of Manufacturers. Talk to KEPSA. These are investors in this country as well. Talk to the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. Talk to the small and medium enterprises. Because let me ask you, Eugene, how much can you say on a platform, in a political rally, in Bukungu Stadium or in Tononoka in Mombasa? How much can you say on a platform? How much policy pronouncements can you say there? These are people standing, it is hot, they want to get a very short, crisp message and go.
Yeah.
So, and ironically, you just told me about the other thing. You told me about the COVID and the crisis of the COVID.
Yeah.
So stakeholder engagement is not a bad thing. And perhaps it is something that we must look at as going into the future. And if the stakeholder engagement was being deemed alive, chances are you had more people engaging in that conversation than you would have in one rally.
In a rally.
Yeah.
So whoever is feeling like this is a tribal meeting to pick the candidate who they will back based on a tribal formation, they're just jealous. This is what you'd say.
I think they're just jealous. I think the feeling is that maybe they were not invited. So you must create a narrative to justify why you are not there. Yeah. But in reality, stakeholder engagements are real. If you want to talk to understand something about bankers and what is happening in the banking circles, you would have to engage the Kenya Bankers Association and have a session with the bankers so that you can understand what are the dynamics that are making them not lend money the way they should be lending in the economy. Yeah, these are the realities.
Yeah, you've mentioned about the referee, and it would be unfair if we finish this interview without talking about the IEBC charged with overseeing the electoral process. And you have time and again talked about the need to actually ensure that this body is mandated enough to be able to deal with those propagating electoral-related violence. During the Kibra by-election, you said that they only talk, but they have never sanctioned any leader who has been pointed at as having propagated electoral malpractice. We have very few days to go to the election 2022. Do you hold the same feeling?
Yes, that is true. I think the IBC must become tougher in enforcing discipline in the political field. Let me say so because we have seen telltale signs of potential conflict. Okay, we have seen, and Makiu, the elections are next year, but we have seen roads being blocked. We have seen tires being burned and stones being pelted at people. At this point in time, I'm not saying that it should be done during the election, but imagine if it has started now.
Yeah.
It's a very dangerous trend. Okay, so they must be able to figure out if there are any politicians or political parties that are condoning this. The red flag should be raised, and where necessary, they should be penalized.
Name and shame, would you go for that?
Name and shame doesn't shake anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a situation where if there is tangible evidence that somebody's either they pay fines, if the law provided for that.
I meant if the IBC is not acting, would you, as a contender, name and shame and just come out and say so-and-so, call them out during process?
That will be of no effect. Yeah. Because I'm not the enforcing agency. What is important is the people with the law who can disqualify a player to play their role. Yes.
Right. Mheshimiwa, before we end, I think it's also important to talk about the dragon, that is corruption. Very few politicians are really pumping information about what they do to actually deal with this corruption issue. I would like to hear from your perspective. Where have we gone wrong? What do you plan to do? And how do you plan to do it? Are there people or institutions or organizations that the moment you are sworn in, your team is already working on making or putting these people to account for what has been looted from the Kenyans?
I think the reality is that we have more than enough institutions to deal with
so where's the problem?
Corruption. I think it's just the political will. Yeah. Let us deal with the political will.
Define this political will.
A political will is where the government of the day will come out more strongly in supporting institutions that are in place to fight corruption. They must be funded adequately. They must have the right technology. They must be able to recruit the human resource that they require. The judiciary must function appropriately. It does not make sense when we have tiffs of the judiciary and the executive, the judiciary and parliament. These are things that, with good political will across the board, can be dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are people...
And that calls for
yeah.
That leadership. That's why I'm offering myself.
To be able to lead.
Yeah.
Are there any names, any people that you probably feel are roaming freely yet they belong to jail and
that is not for me
yeah.
to speak to.
Yeah.
Because the institutions that have the evidence against any individual are in place.
But I feel you're Kenyan. You have all the right.
No, but
to
you
say
don't. You don't just wake up, my friend, and say Eugene is corrupt.
Yeah, as a party, this is from our party position. We believe that so and so after this case.
We must also respect the rule of law. All right, and the rule of law is that speak to what you can push to the end. Let us not go into name calling.
So up to today, there's nothing we can push to the end out of the cases that are.
I'm not a prosecutor, Eugene. I'm not the prosecutor. All right? Neither am I sitting on the judiciary. Let the evidence and what fight against corruption must be evidence-based. It must not be a witch hunt.
Yeah.
It must not be about name calling. To get Kenyans to respect the rule of law, you must be able to show them beyond any reasonable doubt that the individual that is facing the music did indeed commit the crime. That is how it should be. Yeah. There are no two ways about it.
No two ways about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Politics of deceit. You have evidently mentioned this in several of your statements, especially when we talk about the NASA coalition, which is now, and you insisted, hiyo imekwisha.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to say, that going forward, it's not just about Musalia Mudavadi today.
Yeah.
Eugene, it has to be everybody.
Yeah.
Let us build an environment where trust is critical.
Yeah.
Okay? Because no matter how many documents you may append a signature to,
yeah.
if you cannot trust those who are pending signatures to deliver and commit on the basis of those signatures, then we are setting a bad precedent for the country and for future generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
that would mean it's like Kenya today going to the UN, signing a treaty that is supposed to be signed, and then we refuse to enforce it. It's like Kenya saying that you go and sign sovereign debt out there, and then you run away and say that you are not going to pay it. You know, that is not how countries run. That is not how governments run.
That is not how even coalition or agreements run.
Yeah.
And when you say this, does it mean you've lost hope completely in working with this man who you have actually even mentioned? That is Raila Odinga.
Look, right now, I would want to say this.
Yeah.
Let us be forward-looking.
Forward-looking.
And for me, you'll notice, I rarely dwell
on the past,
on individuals and whatever. In my commitment, I like to focus on the issues. Okay? And that is a principle I'm not about to discard today. Yeah.
Forward-looking, meaning we can always bury the hatchet, look forward. If we can work together, we'll do it.
I think what is important is for people to learn to believe in what they commit to. Trust is essential.
Yeah.
And where there's a breach of trust, it can take quite a long time to restore.
To rebuild it or restore it.
Yeah.
How far are we in restoring that trust between you and Raila Odinga?
I don't know whether you've been measuring us. So,
that's why I'm asking you.
So I will not answer that question today.
You can tell us.
No.
Are we almost there or imekata, irreconcilable?
That is not what I can say now. But in politics, there's always one thing. Never say never.
Never say never.
Yeah.
There could be a possibility of anything.
We could work with other Kenyans.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the circumstances and the framework may be varied, but let us be realistic. Yeah.
Never say never. It could also be William Ruto.
Don't go there. I've made my commitment. You asked me a question. I think that's it.
Right. Oka.
Yes.
Presidential flag bearer. I mean, Where does Musalia Mudavadi sit in terms of chances and why he feels he should be the one? And if you do not get it, I mean, what's the plan B, plan
I think
C?
I'm not going to talk of ifs here.
Yeah.
I think let us be more positive.
Yeah.
And to be positive is to say that Kenya is going to live with coalitions and political formations in the years to come. The whole structure of our politics, the size of parliament today, the aspect of devolution that has come into place, it may require horse trading and negotiations at various levels going forward. These are the realities of politics. So I would not want to go on a negative if.
Yeah.
All right. I think what is important is that work on the competitive process.
Yeah.
Work on the basis
Yeah.
that you have an equal chance. All right. And as ANC, I have as good a chance as anybody else to become the flag bearer of the One Kenya Alliance. And indeed, we are inviting other people to talk. And if we can participate, because the deadline for closure is actually next year.
Yeah.
It's not this year.
Yeah. Can you clarify this, everyone? Because sometimes it looks vague. Everyone is who and not who.
When I say we are open to everyone, is political parties, because this is going to be a coalition about political parties.
Yeah.
Okay. For instance, today we had a session with Kadu Wasili from the coast, and they say they want to work with the One Kenya Alliance. And there's a framework. If people want to work with us, that discussions can take place. We had an opportunity to talk to even Martha Karua. They're also engaging in their own way, and we said reflect on it. If there's a desire that we can collaborate, so be it. So these are the, when I talk to, when I mean everyone, I don't mean 48 million people, but I mean in the context of political party formations.
And it could be any political party.
Let everything be taken step by step.
Right. Are you under any pressure, Mheshimiwa, as we finish, when it comes to running for office, number one, from individuals within your circle? Because we've had Senator Malala mentioning that if you dare work with Raila Odinga, that is the end of their support for you.
No, I don't think I'm under any pressure. And people who can champion for their preferred candidates. So let that be part of the debate as we go ahead. But I'm not under any pressure.
What about for deputy president position?
I'm not under any pressure.
Not at all?
No.
And your thoughts on statements from some of the organizations in terms of unions from Mount Kenya saying our bare minimum, this is from Moses Kuria, irreducible minimum.
You see these are political statements, right? Is it documented? Has it been signed up to? No. These are, it could be a wish list, okay, of what people think. And in negotiations, people start at a certain level and then maybe work backwards. It's all about negotiations at the end of the day.
At the end of the day. They won't hear. Just tell me, who's your running mate? No one is listening.
That decision will not be on tonight. There's plenty of time for me to reflect.
So what are you looking for in that person, whether a man or a woman?
A Kenyan who would be principled, and a Kenyan who would be ready to work on the basis of some of the issues that I have talked to. A Kenyan who will be ready to tell Kenyans the truth.
And if you got one, like in the scenario that we see today of between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President, I mean, how do you intend to deal with that?
I've spoken to this before, and I've said that it's unfortunate that Kenya is where it is. But in reality, we should not have, and I hope Kenya does not encounter another scenario where the two top leaders are engaged in the kind of situation that we have seen in the Kenyan, because in Kenya in the last few years, because it definitely affects the delivery of services across the board. It can divide the public service.
Yeah.
Okay. It can delay external agreements that may be critical to a country. All right. So it can put the business community in a state of uncertainty, and therefore they may not create jobs the way they should be creating jobs. So it is clear that it's important for the future that the leadership that Kenyans put in office is a leadership that will work in harmony.
Will work in harmony. I want to read just some comments as we close. I have Kangware Finance who says, what does Honorable Musalia Mudavadi mean by the slogan Uchumi Bora na pesa mfukoni, yet we don't have the money in our pockets? What would you be telling?
I think that is what I explained earlier, that we would want an economy that works for all. And the way to be able to gauge pesa mfukoni is when you have a higher level of disposable income. Okay, so that is what I'm saying. Let us strive to build a good economy, all right, so that we can have more money in our pockets to be able to do other things.
And the building process may or may not happen, depending on different circumstances.
I have worked on the economy before. I was Minister for Finance, and I can tell you, if your policies are right and they're consistent, the economy starts turning around.
Engineer Michael Kimingichi says renegotiating our debt and restructuring is the best approach to solve our debt issue. You agree?
It is one of the key issues. There's what you would call the immediate solution. I mean, immediate or short-term approach, and that would call for the rescheduling and renegotiation. And then there's the long-term debt approach, which must be grow your economy, put your priorities right, live within your means, okay, so that it's working for all. And once you have more people being brought into the tax bracket, then our ability to deal with our external debt becomes better.
What did you mean by saying tutapunguza ushuru?
Grow the tax bracket. When the economy is growing, if, for instance, there are 2,000 people, 2 million people who have lost their jobs, if you bring them back into the working arena, the job market, all right? So instead of you relying on the few who still have jobs, you bring in more people, and they have a good income, a paying job, and so forth. Then they automatically enter into the tax bracket. Now, if more Kenyans are paying tax, surely, then what would stop us from bringing VAT from 16% to 12%?
So 12 is what you're looking at?
I'm giving an example.
That's an example.
I'm giving you an example. All right? I
just want to be sure.
No, but I was giving an example. You know, you could bring it down systematically, 16, 14, and eventually 12. All right? So it is all about the economy and what the economy is producing. How much wealth are you creating?
Right.
I'm not saying that Kenyans should not pay taxes. Hear me out. Okay?
But saying we need more Kenyans.
But Kenyans should not be facing punitive taxation because of our public expenditure programs.
Okay, I hear you. Now, have you heard of China considering such without demanding something else? Huge fish imports, fertilizers, resident permits. Renegotiating is about guarantee. What will Mudavadi offer for such leniency? This is
what is the?
Yes, it's a follow-up question to the previous one on renegotiating our.
You know, as I said, it's a question of what you agree on trade matters as well, because maybe this is a conversation around trade issues between Kenya and China. So it depends on what you really negotiate.
So if there's someone who's watching you right now, and they feel probably you haven't answered to their key question as to why they have to choose you out of the many that have already put themselves over for this top job in the country. Be it from the business community, maybe it is a young person who's going to vote for the first time, maybe they had given up. They said promises upon promises. These politicians, we know them. They'll promise you this, but after 5 years, they are back again to ask you for their vote. Speak to them tonight. What would you be telling them?
Well, I would tell them that look out for the truth. I mean, and to me, I'm talking more to the young people of this country.
Yeah.
They're not fools. They're intelligent. They've gone to school. They have better communication skills.
Yeah.
They communicate faster. They have ways of making references on what somebody is committing here and what has been achieved in other countries and before. So there are Kenyans who have a better ability to analyze us than ever before. So my take to them is that sift us appropriately and put in place somebody that you can trust to respect the rule of law, to put in place sound policies, sound and realistic policies, to grow the economy, to create jobs, to cut down on the cost of production, and to make the whole economy work better.
Right.
This is what I would tell them. And before I conclude, let me then appeal to them that please, the statistics that have come out for voter registration are not encouraging.
Correct.
Yeah, the number of Kenyans who have been issued with new IDs vis-a-vis those who are appearing at polling stations, registration centers to register as voters is not encouraging. And this came out very clearly yesterday and today when the IBC was speaking to this issue. So the message is that who do you want to solve your problems if you don't vote for the right person?
Is it worrying you, especially when it comes to those are the numbers you're looking for?
Yes, it worries me. It worries me. It worries me that I don't know whether it is a state of despair or hopelessness,
apathy,
which leads to the apathy. We must find a way, because if you want to change the country, then get the tools that will enable you to change the country. And in a democratic nation like ours, the tool that will help you change this country is the vote when it comes to political leadership.
Perfect. I think this is where we'll put an end to this conversation tonight, and I'm hoping that we've been able to tackle some of those issues that we had intended to do. But maybe in closure, the issue of crime is very important, which we needed actually to talk about. Terrorism, what do you intend? It is very sad, Mheshimiwa, that today we are still talking about conflicts within our own borders. We've talked about Laikipia, and sadly, more sadly, is the fact that we have politicians who've been implicated in fueling and funding.
First of all, it's very sad if politicians are entangled in this. I think they should be dealt with in accordance with the law. So that a clear message, a clear signal is sent that there's no room for this kind of thing. And if there are other aspects, maybe drought and the disparities that we talk about, where the gap between those who may be with means and those who do not have means is widening, I think the solution that I've been talking about, an economy that works for all, becomes extremely critical. For instance, if there's Isiolo airport, we need to look at it so that the Meru Miraa farmer does not have to drive all the way from Meru to Nairobi to get his produce so that it can reach its market. Suppose he just has to drive all the way to to Isiolo Airport, and there's sufficient cargo handling facilities to deal with that. You'd save lives. Maybe the margins would be better.
Yeah.
You know, so to me, insecurity is also deeply hinged on what you'd call the cost of living today.
Yeah. And distribution of resources.
And we must find a way of addressing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen some of the challenges? We go to rallies, and I was in some of the towns, and when you leave, young men and women who are on border, they can literally block you from leaving until they believe that you owe them some support. All right? Maybe they have carried some people to that place and so forth to allow people to attend. But if they feel that they have not been rewarded, you may find they can block the roads and you will not be able to leave.
Yeah.
Now, you see, this is a signal. This is a signal that Kenyans are under pressure. And some of these people, whether it's on the border or whether it is on the Uber, these are people who are well educated. They're under pressure. You know, they have to pay rent. They have to feed their families. The pressure is real.
The pressure is real.
Yeah.
And that pressure is also real for people of the Western region considered the sugar belt for the
Absolutely.
country. And I would like to answer this question because I'll not forgive myself, or I'll not be forgiven for not asking this. Aren't you ashamed that the Mumia's sugar issues has never been resolved up to now, considering your wealth of experience in economic matters and even your influential position? Why do we still have that particular factory in the state that it is in? What is the real problem? Is it politicking? Is it the lack of money? What is the issue?
There are so many, it depends on which angle you're looking at.
Yeah.
But I thought Parliament, in spite of the concerns I may have expressed, there are a few things that the Parliament may have done. I think there's a bill where they want to reinstate the sugar development levy as a dedicated fund or levy to support cane development, sugar cane manufacturers, and those in that particular sector. I think it was a grave mistake to have removed that, because even research, which used to be funded through the development levy, literally collapsed, cane research. So these are issues that may need revisiting. The other factors is, as we go forward, we also have to embrace the new technologies that are more efficient in sugar production or cane management-related issues. So going forward, it is something that can be turned around. I say so because in the days of Idi Amin, all the sugar factories in Uganda were vandalized, literally all of them, and closed. And when Museveni's government came in, they worked on the rehabilitation and modernization of those sugar factories. And today, the Uganda is producing sugar, okay, from areas that one would have thought is completely gone. So it is possible. It is possible that our own sugar factories can be rehabilitated with appropriate policies. Yeah. And support, and they can be back on their feet. Yeah, it is possible, but then there's something maybe someone wants to hear who used to feed and take their children through their sugarcane plantation, and today they cannot, and they wish they could be able to do that again. What is happening already as we speak right now in making what you say it is possible to actually turn into a possibility
Because someone might just say, that's just a promise. It says it is possible, but nothing is
no, but there are examples.
Yeah.
Because as some of the government ran, initially what were government factories, have suffered, maybe lack of modernization and so forth, over the years, we have seen private investors coming in and setting up their own factories not too far away from these other institutions, and they're thriving.
So it must not be Mumia's sugar company. It could be any.
Yes. So I'm talking of the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I want to end there.
Thank you. I think that's
that's it.
That's been
way past our time to
wow.
go. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for watching the program. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. It doesn't end here. We just continue the conversation on our online platforms. You're on Twitter. You tweet for yourself?
No, there are young men and women who help me on that.
And you talk about that, and the young people probably would love to see you do what the young people are doing. That is
why I work with them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you offer the employment for them and not say you're going to do it yourself.
I mean, with all our politics, you cannot be running around.
You cannot.
Just dwelling on the Twitter yourself.
All right.
Yeah.
But of course, then
but we work together.
Once in a while, you go through and check.
Yeah.
Right. So you can as well continue tweeting. And of course, Mheshimiwa here will be able to work with the young people who he works with to be able to respond to your questions. If you feel probably there are aspects that we did not touch on, I'm hoping that we'll be able to have another chance. I'm sure we still have time.
Yes, we have time.
Tutarudi tena. Asante sana. Thank you for your time.
By the way, my final conclusion on this is that we can also not talk about uchumi bora na pesa mfukoni without the women of this country. We talked a lot about the youth, but including the women.
Including the women.
Okay. Of course, there are people with disabilities and so forth, but I'm focusing on the gender issue primarily because when jobs are lost, the people who are hit most are women.
Yeah.
And when the economy is thriving, and the women are able to access income, whether they are single mother or women-led households and so forth, it becomes better for everybody.
It becomes better for everybody.
Yeah.
That could be our hint. I asked you earlier on whether you already have a name for our deputy president. Maybe this is a hint. You cannot talk about that. You cannot talk about women in that high regard and then pick a male.
They deserve a right. They have the right like anybody else.
Yeah. And now that you've not denied that, then we are looking at a deputy president who's a woman without the name right now.
I think it would be good for Kenya anyway.
It would be good for Kenya.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
Asante, there you have it.
Asante,
Mudavadi, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
My name as always is Eugene Anangwe. We'll see you again next time. Of course, we hope that you'll continue watching Look Up TV and enjoy the rest of our programs. Thank you to the teams. Thank you to all those who have been able to participate through the online platforms and in every way possible. Asante sana. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Wow.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893 542 or send us an email to views@look-up.tv. We can't wait to hear from you.
Want to grow your business? Broadcast your sermon, share birthday wishes, make funeral announcements, produce adverts and documentaries? Then book and advertise with us today by calling us on +254 700 893 542
700-893-542
or email us on sales@look-up.tv.
The future of money is simple, like unlocking possibilities with a smile. And having the world in the palm of your hand. It's the ability to touch many lives at the same time and turn your dreams into reality. It's forgetting and still remembering. Simple is having everything that you love in one place. From the ticket to your next meal, to your ticket to the next holiday. It's an easy way to ask for a boost when you're low. And keeping track of everything on the go. The future of money is simple, and it's here. Download the new M-Pesa app today.
Please make those payments and take dinner out the freezer. Enjoy your day off.
Hey.
How was your day?
Great.
Did you pay the bills?
Abby did it.
And the plumber?
Abby did it.
Send money to your mom?
Abby did it.
Who's Abby?
Bank on WhatsApp with Abby, your 24/7 digital personal banker. Another digital innovation that gets things done. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Did you take dinner out the freezer?
Nairobi, are you ready? October is Dyslexia Awareness Month and the whole world will go red for dyslexia. Join us on 28th of October. Wear the red outfit as we light up the UAP on Mucho Red for dyslexia.
Where will you be watching the glow from? Is the child write B instead of D? Is the child phobic to the red pen due to the numerous X wrongs they get from teacher's marking pen? Do they refer to your child as a slow learner? Your child is simply dyslexic. To be part of the sponsor and for more information about dyslexia, kindly contact 0722 380 952. Let's go red for dyslexia.
Welcome to Look Up Guest House Retreat and Prayer Center. When you first come